Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We're back here on YouTube and we have another episode of the K2N vlog. If you watched last week's vlog episode, I was neck deep in doing lessons with people from all around North America as well as in Canada. And at the end of the week, I had logged 31.5 hours of one-on-one or small group time on Lake Hernando. It's a lot of hours and it's more volume than I typically do. But again, I'm very fortunate to be in this position. I love working with people and it is awesome helping people forward towards reaching their goals. Right now is Dragon Boat selection season for both Canada and the USA. So all the different senior categories, the premier team, men, women, the mixed boats, everybody is jockeying for the seat. And the missing link in making the team and not making the team is the OC1 time trial. So many paddlers making their way down here to get additional water time if the waterways where they're at are frozen, as well as getting more advanced detail on how to move an outrigger canoe specifically in order to make these time trial standards and make these national teams. This vlog episode is on Sunday and we had a race at Chris Park in St. Petersburg. I raced in the surf ski. There was 5 fast open category surf skis. We finished 1 through 5 on the race course. I finished 3rd at the event. If you watch the Weeki Wachee race, Jason and Ed were the ones without the rudder and running into the shallows and having kind of a tough race course, and I was able to finish ahead of them there. And at Chris Park, the opposite is true. Both of them finished ahead of me on the race this time. So at the end of the video, over the footage, I'll talk about some of the tactics and some of the different ideas that went into the race. It was pretty exciting footage for the most part. Chris Park is not your typical race course. It's still shallow and there's a lot of turns and it's kind of a labyrinth that you have to navigate. And I was able to implement some old man tricks in order to secure 3rd place. And if you don't know what an old man trick is, I'm gonna define that in the video at the end. I mentioned that on my personal Facebook and a lot of people don't know what that means. And I've been hearing it my entire life when somebody older and wiser and has been through a lot of these situations uses advanced tactics against you to beat you, right? And so at this point, being on the receiving end of some of these tricks, I am the beneficiary of being able to use them against paddlers that don't know that they can potentially come at them. So I'm still a young man, but I'm on my 11th year of long distance racing. So I am old and wise on a race course. So watch out. I have tricks up my sleeve to try to secure different race finish positions. So looking at the performance on Saturday and kind of converting that into some of the lessons, both in person as well as through the online school with these Dragon Boat time trials specifically, and looking at some of the parallels between myself and people that are in these situations and trying to pursue these very specific goals. So for me in the surf ski, like I would have liked to win, right? I always go out there, I always try to do my best. And a lot of the race course came down to fitness and skill level, right? If I was just a little bit faster, I could be a little bit more versatile with some of my decision making and tactics and potentially hold on for a much closer finish or to potentially win. And the missing ingredient for that for me is mileage, right? If since September I had logged 1,000 miles in a kayak, the race result would be a little bit different having that bulk volume in the specific discipline. But as you know, I do a little bit of everything and right now it's a lot more canoe paddling. So because of that, having 8 to 12 miles per week within a surf ski, even over a month or two, is not enough volume in order to go out on a 12-mile course or 20-kilometer course and do well, or I should rephrase, do as well as I perceive myself to, right? So with that volume and with, you know, having technique and balance in an elite boat, there are many paddlers that look up to that and are like, man, I would do anything to be that fast. But for me, I'm more focused on what is the difference between 3rd and 1st, and I really want that difference, but the amount of volume and training and intensity that would need to go into that is huge, and I don't know if I can make that full commitment towards it. So on the race day, the other 2 paddlers beat me, much better than me, right? But there is a potential if I go back to the drawing board and spend more time that I can come back and try to match their performance. So looking at that entire idea and turning our head, looking at the Dragon Boat time trial. So paddlers that paddle in a 20-person team boat have to go into a single craft, paddle it themselves and reach a specific metric. So they go X amount of distance in X amount of time, and with this metric, they now get reallocated into a national team boat. And so the only way to make the team is you gotta reach this metric, right? And so the K2N Online Paddle School has worked with numerous, dozens and dozens from Canada as well as the US and Australia and all over the place, of paddlers that are trying to figure out these OC1 time trials specifically. And we have worked with paddlers that have made it, and we've worked with paddlers that fall short of it, right? And I am pretty intimately aware of some of the metric differences, but there are other variables that go into this as well. So that's what we're going to talk about, is what are like the missing ingredients, right? What are the ideas that differentiate reaching success and not reaching that success? And I have it broken down today into like 3 parts. The first one is understanding a concept. The second one is implementing a concept. And number 3 is practicing. Having an aptitude to learn and take in information puts you at a major advantage over somebody who does not understand something. If somebody has an inability to learn versus somebody that has the ability to learn, now when we introduce more time into the equation, the person that's learning will progress faster, and the person that is not learning may not progress at all. There are a lot of variables that go into this. If you have a previous coach that drills different ideas into you and you hold on to those old ideas and you can't learn beyond that, you're going to stay right where you're at. But if you have the ability to take in new information, implement new ideas, and be open-minded, your ability to start taking steps forward presents itself. And I see this a lot, right? There are a lot of paddlers, when I'm speaking, they are super intent looking at me, taking as much information as they physically can. And I have other paddlers that when I start talking, you can see their eyes like roll into the back of their head, and they're like, man, I stopped listening to you after like the 3rd or 4th word. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like if you find me boring, no problem, right? But the person that is able to extract the information from me, again, they have an aptitude to understand an idea and start progressing forward, versus the person that can't get the new information out of me. It means that they have no pathway to success. The next part is implementing an idea, right? And this is where it's hard, because you got to take an idea from your brain and make your body do it. Some people are very good at this, right? I'm going to make a circle with this one, and this one's going to go up and down. And there's other people that are like, okay, I want this hand to do a circle, and I want this one to go up and down. Coach Robert, am I doing it? And they don't have the ability to move in a way that their brain wants them to. And so this is another hurdle, right? Because you either have this aptitude or you don't. And if you don't, you have to work extra hard and you have to work longer to take these steps forward. And somebody that does have this aptitude can work less, and it comes easier and it comes natural and they progress quicker. And that's just a difference in your mind motor functions. Really, the only thing you can do to combat that is you have to understand if you don't have this aptitude, and you have to be laser focused on having a checks and balance system, on making sure that you are doing it correctly. And you have to train and work out much more in order to put these ideas in. A natural gifted learner will, again, understand a concept quickly, implement it quickly. And now the last piece of the puzzle is practice. Even if you are talented, if you do not spend the time doing the activity, your ability to progress and get better at it is highly, highly limited. In a general sense, if you are practicing, this doesn't mean that you immediately progress. There are paddlers that paddle for multiple years and they don't get better because they're missing the other component: understanding new concepts, implementing new concepts, and then practice. And with that practice, adding in an exorbitant amount of time, right? And this, especially when you're compared against other individuals, they are going to make these decisions in their benefit. They are going to understand a concept. They're going to implement it. And then they're going to practice. And the only way that you can match this is by doing what they're doing and trying to be on the same page of movement and technique understanding as them. And a big holdup with understanding technique is former coaching, right? If I'm in a team boat and I'm drilled that I must do this and this and this, when you get into a solo boat where you're responsible for it by yourself, there's no asterisks next to your result if it's poor that says, oh, but I learned it from this person, right? You are responsible for yourself. And you should approach it knowing that you need to make personal decisions to implement ideas that make you faster. When you're in the team boat, you need to follow what your team boat coach is saying. But when you're by yourself, you're by yourself. If you use those ideas and have a poor result, this opens the door for different ideas being more effective. Somebody is going out there and going fast doing it. If you're not doing it, you need to start looking over and figuring out what the differences are. And this is where K2N comes in, right? People are able to come down. We go through a couple of lessons that I find to be the most basic concepts in paddling, right? Do this, do that, do this. And they're like, wow, I've never paddled like this in my life. And it's funny because I can't imagine not paddling like that, right? It is such basic macro movement that go into the paddle stroke, and many paddlers never learn that. So instantly there are ideas that are implemented that can make a huge result to your performance simply by understanding a concept, implementing concept, and then integrating in practice. So keep this in mind. If you are part of this Dragon Boat time trial season for the national teams, if you do the same thing, you're going to get the same result. And if that isn't good enough to get you to your goals, there's something right next to it that will help you progress beyond the point that you're stuck at. And that's the difference in making these teams and not making these teams. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to see discussed here on the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com on the vlog series, feel free to leave a comment or send me an email anytime. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you all next week for the next K2N vlog episode. All right, everybody, welcome to Chris Park in St. Petersburg, Florida. So we got our start line here, and this is an incredibly confusing course, and I'm actually going to show you guys the map of the course. And keep in mind that this is a one-way, so we start and finish at Chris Park. We go up around some islands, we go back through some canals, we have to go through the Weeden Island Preserve, and we have to go back into some other canals to a walking bridge. It is incredibly tricky of a course. Super shallow water, you're gonna see a lot of paddlers running around. Lots of turns that you can miss. People have to pull out their phones to figure out where they're at. So this is right off the gun at the start line here. We're trying to figure out who are the fast boats. Nick is on the far side in the black NK, Ed Joy in the white one here. Chad is on my left with the black Think, and you can see the white Epic Nose pulling up. That's Jason, and this is him again with the GoPro footage. Very nice of him to run a GoPro and provide the SD card for this. So this is off the start line. You see all the other racers jockeying behind us. And then the front running surf skis coming together. There's a V8 double as well. So here's all the front runners, and we're deciding to follow around Ed. He usually starts pretty hard. Nick over there working hard by himself. I actually shout to him to pace himself because it's a long way, 12 miles, right? There's no reason to hit it so hard off the start line. And as we're going through, forming into a diamond, right? Following behind the lead boat. The wake that all these boats are putting off helps propel yours if you're behind them or next to them. In this case, we're both, right? Being behind Nick, being next to Ed, being next to Jason. All of this is creating a wash and a draft that the boat can kind of slip into and get a little bit of an advantage. It would be awesome if all 5 of us were together the entire way. It would make life easier for the leech, which would be me in this scenario, being dead center, getting pulled by everybody. But it's hard. It's not simple to stay in these drafts, right? You have to be in good position, and it does take some horsepower. So it's not effortless that you get carried along, but you do get a small boost, and sometimes that can be invaluable in race results. So Jason's starting to go off to the side, and he starts to pull ahead, and we slip into the front of the group as we're working our way around here. But yeah, it's great footage having 5 boats out. I love racing and being neck deep in different crafts that are all very fast and similar in speed. Outrigger canoe right now, I don't think we have 5 people that live in Florida that would be at the same skill level to stay in a pack like this. If I were to go to like California or something like that, likely finding, you know, paddlers within a similar skill level. But within surf ski, right, and especially in the beginning of a race, I can try to hang on and, you know, use the environment to my advantage. So as we go through, coming in under this bridge, and again, I have Jason's footage as well here. And my camera has a lot of water on it, so you can see Ed and Jason flicking water in the back, and it hits me in the face repeatedly, and it gets water on my lens. And so some of my footage continues to deteriorate as we move along here. I make a little room for Ed to come in because I want to be behind the both of them. So this is one of the shallow sections. So the 2 of them go wide around this 3rd island, and I know that it's deeper close to it, and they don't know that. So some of the little tactics right here, there's just enough water that I can paddle around. Paddling is always faster than running in knee-deep water. And so I'm able to go from 3rd place back to the front position here. And Jason's kind of struggling. He's letting Nick catch back up. Chad is right there in the back as well. So coming to these full stops like this, somebody was saying like, man, you guys are all so fast looking at our GPS report, and it's like, you have no idea because we had to get out of the boat a half dozen times and run, and that's typically not faster. So Jason catches up to me very quickly, and I slow down to regain my breath, drop my heart rate, knowing he's gonna come back up and eventually pull me. So there's no reason to work hard by myself when I know that, you know, another draft opportunity is storming up behind me. He has to work harder, and I get to take a little breather as we go through these canal systems, right? Ed is there, and then Nick is in the back there. Nick was saying he was struggling with some of the draft positions since he's kind of new to the race scene, and especially paddling in a group like this. So being 10 feet back like that gives you no advantage. Being a little bit closer would give you a huge wash advantage because there's 3 boats displacing water in the front. I thought this footage looked really cool. Going under these bridges, it's very tight. Jason's a nice guy, so he runs it dead center in the middle, and it gives me and Ed room to the side. If he were to zig left or right, we would have to yield to, or we should yield to him and fall back and lose some of that draft position, forcing you to work hard to get back next to them. But in all these, this is a different bridge as we go under it here. And same idea, he stays kind of conservative with going around. See, he could have cut the mangroves to the left here a little tighter, but instead he leaves a little bit of room for me, so I'm able to hold on here. Being in this draft position, again, it's not a huge advantage, 5 to 10 seconds per mile approximately, but it adds up, right? Over 12 miles, that's like 2 minutes. And especially with the concept of you get to work a little less and go that 10 seconds per mile faster, right? So it adds up tremendously. So as we leave the canals, it's incredibly shallow out here, and Jason's the lead boat, and he goes into the shallows. I'm like, I'm gonna go wide and stay in the channel a little bit more, and ultimately that was not the right decision, and it throws me off of the draft pack that they are on. So you can see they're much further to the right from my vantage. I'm going left in a little bit deeper water. It's still relatively shallow. I didn't go as far over as I probably should have. So this was one of the major decisions in the race that separated us, but I was hoping we would reconverge. And unfortunately at this point, we're at like mile 4 or 4.5, the dice rolled snake eyes for me, and I'm just right behind them, but I'm losing out on that draft opportunity. So that 5 to 10 seconds per mile is working against me. As I mentioned previously in the video, my fitness isn't quite there to make up a gap like this, 40 minutes into an event, right? And so having a bit more mileage and being a little bit more dedicated to surf ski would give me that opportunity to push it, catch back up to them, and then get that reward. But instead, I'm back here, I'm working by myself. The wind, the shallow water, the tide, all these things are working against me, and my fitness is not in my benefit at this moment. So this is a turnaround bridge, and this is a solid 38 seconds of, I think, movie magic here. So they get to the turn, Ed's like, I'm not going under, that's too shallow. So he turned in front of the bridge, and Jason's like, well, I'm gonna go under the bridge. So he's in the freaking tree. And I mean, we're in the middle of a race, right? And these guys have come to a dead stop here. And he just goes up, grabs the boat, pulls it. This is probably the smartest way to turn it because it's the fastest. This opening here is incredibly small. So your rudder, your nose, all that stuff can get stuck here. And so again, if I was with them and I was able to nail this turn, right, this would put Jason further back. But instead, they've already passed me at this point as I get up to the bridge. They're probably about 30 seconds to a minute ahead of me. So I start to make my turn. I don't realize Nick is like on me, right? So I start making this turn and shoot, he's right there. I'm like, oh dude, I'm sorry. I thought he was enough further back that I could complete this turn. So Nick's running up the gun and he's right on me. And so he is on the left side. There's not enough room to turn his boat around here. And you can see I'm struggling with this turn staying in my boat as well. So it takes him a while to reconfigure the boat, get back in it, and start to catch up. So this gives me an additional lead again. Here's another shallow section coming out of those canal systems. This is around the Weeden Island Preserve. And Jason's trying to figure out, can I paddle here? And he's like, screw it. So another 30 solid seconds of a nice light jog through ankle deep water. And it's always funny to see because the course is so freaking technical. It's really hard to run it just right. And we're out there, everybody on that race course definitely struggling with, all the different conditions. So I mentioned in the very beginning of the video about some old man tricks. So I know this course like the back of my hand. I can't get lost out here in the canals, the Weeden Preserve. I'm very familiar with it. The water depth changing based on the tide, I'm not as familiar with. So I will get stuck in some shallow water here and there. But for the most part, I have this course memorized. And so Nick is brand new to our Florida race scene. This is his first time doing the course, and he's kind of relying on me being like Rudolph, guiding the way. And as we get into the canal systems, I know that it's gonna come down to a sprint finish, right? I know that we're super close and I can't just power up for the next 20 minutes and try to make a gap. And so it's smarter in my end to be conservative and let him catch up. And letting him catch up to the point where he's leading because he doesn't know where he's going, right? I do. And so as we go through these canal systems, I know that there is a left turn coming up at a certain point, and I position myself where I'm on the left side of him, right? And I can't remember if it's the third or the fourth canal, but I know as we enter into the opening, there's a bridge on the left. So I'm looking for the bridge, and the moment I see it, I start darting over to it. And at that point, he had turned to the right, and I had made this left turn towards the bridge. And this was the deciding factor in the race. Our race result difference was only 7 seconds, and that accounted for about 10 seconds. At that point, every last bit of energy I had, I started to pump into the paddle strokes in order to create a gap and prevent him from catching back up. It was probably about a mile or less left in the race. But that's a deciding factor, right? Is, you know, it's not really a trick, but it's something you need to know is the exact course that you're gonna run, right? And exactly when to time your energy in conjunction with the course that you're on. So if you're not familiar with the course, you can't time your energy for a true sprint finish or reallocating your energy to secure a finish position. In this case, it's only a third place, but had I run my energy differently and had I gotten confused on the course, I would have gotten fourth, right? So putting those ideas together and just trying to hold on to a finish position, whether it's first, second, third, or whatever it is, right? When we do races, we're trying to beat the people around us, not necessarily do a purist time trial best effort. So Ed actually ended up winning. He beat Jason by about a second over the finish line. This is them coming into the canal. I don't have any of this footage that I'm describing because all of our GoPro batteries die before we get to the end, right? So the race is about an hour and 40 minutes or so, and the GoPro only lasts about 90 minutes. So this is them going through the canal system on the way to Chris Park. And here is the race finish. I was about 2.5 minutes back. The two of them separated by about a second, and Nick here being about 7 seconds behind me. So a lot of fun, really cool. I hope you guys enjoy this footage. If there's anything that you want to add or comment on, please leave a comment below or send me an email. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video, and we'll see you all next week for the next vlog